dogs being on our displays, but we do ask if they can be please kept over in the dog viewing area, which is just over there then, so they're a little bit out of the way of the birds flying over. If we do have any dogs get a little bit too excitable in the birds' presence, we then ask could they please be just moved a bit further afield, because of course if they do bark or lunge at the birds and the birds get a bit spooked by them, that will impede the display. Now other than that then guys, if you do feel the need to disappear during this show, by all means do so, but please be aware of where the birds are in relation to you, because some of these birds then, when they are flying from point A to point B, they really get fixated on that set path. So if you stand up and you move into their way, don't really expect them to move for you. And a face full of feathers isn't really as soft as it might sound, so pay that one a bit of attention. Again, if you want to walk off, that's fine, but if you see a bird flying towards you, just stop, let them go past, and then by all means carry on. If we can also have nobody trying to touch the birds as well, that would be brilliant. But if you want to take any pictures of them or video them, then that is absolutely fine. Other than that then, I think we're ready to make a start with our first bird of the afternoon, whose name is Chuck, and he's just going to bring himself out to the corner of the arena to his little fence. He likes it over there. So this is Chuck then, and Chuck is our laughing kookaburra, which is a native species to eastern Australia, and they're also found in New Zealand. Now these birds can typically be found in eucalyptus forests across Australia, so you'll find them living amongst other animals such as koala. And these birds, they will occasionally occupy areas where you get water as well, so small streams and rivers, and that is because amphibians and small fish make up a reasonable amount of their diet. But also then these birds will go for small rodents, they'll occasionally go for small birds as well. They will take eggs and little reptiles, including snakes. Did you have a little bit more under your feet there? You have a little check just to make sure. Chuck, you gonna come over, buddy? Now Chuck here then is an imprinted kookaburra, and what this means is he has been hand reared. So he actually believes that he is a human and that we are his mum and dad. So he is quite a vocal little character. You might hear him making the odd noise here and there as he's flying about you today. But of course he gets his title, the Laughing Kookaburra, by that very iconic cackle that these birds produce. Now out in Australia they have been given the nickname the Bushman's alarm clock, and that is because when they produce this cackle they do it typically at dawn and dusk, and that is because then that is when these birds are going to be either waking up or just about to go to roost for the night. And they use this cackle in very much the same way that a songbird will use its song. It's just their way of announcing that this is their territory and they're laying claim to it. And of course then any other kookaburras in the area, they're very easily going to be able to hear this, and it's going to make it very easy for them to know who lay claim to which part. And of course to a female kookaburra then, Chuck, if they hear Chuck making his cackle and it sounds nice and loud, nice and healthy, they're going to know that he's going to be potentially a good choice for a mate as well. So it is a very useful tool. Again, they get that lovely nickname, the Bushman's alarm clock. Now this bird is in fact the largest member of the kookaburra family, and they're also the largest member of the kingfisher family as well, because that is what kookaburras are. They are in fact a type of kingfisher. This is why then kookaburras have got these absolutely enormous bills on them. It enables them of course to tackle their prey, and I imagine they use it in a lot of regards then to help with their nesting, as they will typically nest into the holes of those eucalyptus trees. There we go. Boy. Now these birds are also used as a form of pest control as well then, and this is because again where these guys, they do like to target snakes, in particular venomous snakes. Now they don't really have the powerful talons or feet of a hawk or an eagle, so what these birds will do is they'll simply grab it mid-air if it's a bird, but of course if it's on the ground they'll spear it with that very large beak of theirs. They have got enough power in their beaks to actually crush through the skull of a rodent up to the size of a rat or so. But if it's a bit too big to do that, what Chuck will do is he'll take his snake to a tree or a large rock per se, and then he'll actually bludgeon it over and over again until it's nice and dead. And again, because these birds, they don't really have the capability to break their food up into, oh, change your mind with that one. They don't really have the capability to break their food up into lots of little pieces. So they do prefer to swallow their prey whole. So by essentially tenderizing their food when they're bludgeoning it, I imagine it makes it a bit easier for them to swallow. Now Chuck has done really, really well, so what I think we're going to do then is convince him. Now you want to go over there, do you, instead? Okay. You can do your own thing. We're going to convince him, hopefully, to do one more little snatch for us. And then we'll see where he wants to end up. Oh, he's going to go over and join the gift shop by the looks of it. It is a bit new to him at the moment, actually. The fencing has changed in the last week. So he's kind of relearning where the perches are, because obviously there used to be a load round here, which have all disappeared. So he's just getting used to the new setup, but he is doing very, very well. So what we're going to do with Chuck then is I'm going to call him over to a much nicer, bigger chunk of food. This is going to be Chuck's dinner. You want to come over, mate? You're just going to stare at me for a minute. He is very much a bird of, once he is on a perch and he is comfy, he doesn't really like to move that much. We do have a little saying with Chuck, which is, if he fits, he sits, and that really holds true. In fact, yesterday, mid-demo with Chuck, I wasn't the one flying him, but he did decide that my head looked like a very nice perch. So he came over, oh, where are you going? He came over and he just decided to sit on my head for about 2 to 3 minutes and just was quite happy there. But there you go, guys, that's Chuck, so give him a clap, he's done really well. And we're going to move on to our next character. Now, the next bird that's going to be joining us then, his name is Diesel. And Diesel is a type of vulture known as a turkey vulture. Now, these birds come from the United States. They're typically found in North America. And this is a bird that you'll find soaring around, like most vulture species, looking for dead animals, because he is not a predator. He doesn't have the ability to hunt. He doesn't have powerful talons or particularly strong feet. What he does have, though, is a very, very sharp beak on him. He's actually got a serrated beak, which means that he can bite through quite tough flesh if he needs to. Now, this is because of some of the things that Diesel would be eating out there in the wild, which is actually anything. This bird will eat absolutely any animal as long as it's dead. And that is pretty much the only criteria to Diesel's dinner. Now, vultures, sadly, they do get a pretty rough reputation as a whole. And I think a lot of that has got to do with how they look, but also, of course, as I've just mentioned, they eat dead. And I think a lot of people kind of go a little bit, ugh, when they hear that and they turn nose at vultures. Now, the reason that vultures are, actually, I'm going to stop what I'm saying just for a minute. He does like to do this on the shows. He is sunbathing. It's known as the Heralctic pose. So over in North America, you can get sometimes 100 or so turkey vultures all doing this together, turning their backs to the sunshine, moving like solar panels, and just like solar panels then, their dark feathers will help to suck up the warmth. Now, they do this for 2 reasons, obviously, to warm up. And that is because in certain parts of America, the temperatures can drop so low at nightfall that these birds can go practically hypothermic. So, are you giving yourself a bit of a height advantage there? So actually, by sunbathing in the morning, it reanimates them. It literally kind of brings them back to life. They also use it then as a way of getting rid of any parasites. Because of course, when you're eating dead animals, you might encounter mites, you might encounter ticks, anything like that. And if they're basking in that really hot sunshine, it's hopefully going to kill all of those parasites off and helps to keep him just a little bit cleaner. But again, these birds, they do not look the prettiest, I would say, of some birds, but there is a good reason for it. Now, Diesel is bold, and the reason he is bold then is because if he found himself a dead cow, he would actually shove his entire head right the way down to his shoulders into the belly of said decaying animal. As a result, he's going to get covered in blood and guts. So the last thing he needs is a lovely, pretty head of feathers, which is then just going to become filthy. So in actual fact, being bold keeps him a lot cleaner. He also has the ability then to close both his ears and his nostrils, which enables him to prevent any of that, again, decaying flesh or blood from entering those orifices. So the reason that vultures look the way they do is in fact to keep themselves clean. And I don't really think cleanliness is a word that people would associate with vultures a lot of the time, but it actually does go hand in hand. And this is because all vultures on our planet have got one of the most powerful stomach acids of any living creature. So strong, in fact, it can melt through some degree of metal. Now this gives him the ability then, he's having a bit more of a sunbathe, he's really enjoying, even though the sun's not really out, he's still enjoying the warmth coming through the clouds. So these birds then will be eating animals that have died of anthrax, sometimes Ebola if they come from Africa, foot and mouth is something he might encounter in America, same with rabies, and of course he would not want to eat that disease and then contract it himself. That's why his stomach is so powerful, it totally annihilates the illness altogether, and then when it comes out the other end, that disease is no longer present. In fact, vultures do a little bit more for our planet than, weirdly enough, with their poo, because vulture feces have got almost the same level of alkaline inside of them as washing up liquid, which means that whatever Diesel goes to the toilet on, he does in fact disinfect. Now this is one of the reasons why turkey vultures have quite an unusual quirk, which is that they like to poo down their own legs. And the reason they do this then, is to, again, kill off anything that might have gotten onto their legs or feet whilst they've been feeding. It also acts to cool them down a little bit as well, because if they get too hot out there in America, if they poo down their legs, it just lowers their body temperature a little bit. Now, luckily for the turkey vulture, they are a creature of least concern in the wild, meaning that their population is lovely and healthy. The same cannot be said, however, for African or Asiatic vultures. In fact, the vast majority of African vultures currently are classed as critically endangered, which means only one classification from going extinct in the wild. Now, almost the entire reason for this is ivory poaching, which is a subject I'm sure you've heard of at least once or twice, the killing of elephant and rhino for either their tusk or horn, their ivory. Now this is not because the poachers want the vultures, it's because the vultures, by circling overhead of those recently killed animals, they show the rangers where the poachers are. Poachers have now become wise to this, so what they will do is they will shoot as many vultures as possible, and they'll cover the carcass in poison, such as pesticides or cyanide, and this will, hello again,
I ran all the way down here for that.
I mean, you did a lovely fly, just not to you. And this will then, unfortunately, ensure that the poachers get away with their prize and they leave 100 or more dead vultures at a time. In fact, one of the worst cases ever was in the COVID times. He's very attached to Charlie. In 2020, when unfortunately over 500 vultures were killed on just one poaching incident in southwest Africa. The main species affected by that was the African hooded vulture, which is already a critically endangered species, and that was a stronghold for that bird's population as well. Now, the reason we tell people about this is because, again, because of their negative media portrayal, vultures never really get the recognition they deserve, and people don't understand just how vital they are to our planet. All vultures are classed as a keystone species, which simply means then that if you were to take any type of vulture out of its respective ecosystem, hello, I thought taking my glove off would discourage you, clearly not. So if you were to take any vulture out of their respective ecosystem, that ecosystem would start to collapse, because what you would have then is a perpetual cycle of death and disease, because no other animal can actually get rid of that disease to the same degree as the vulture family can. So they are absolutely imperative for a healthy planet. Now, I think Diesel's done a lot today. He's done a very good amount of flying. Charlie's absolutely knackered. So for Charlie's sake, I think what we're going to do is call Diesel down to the front. No, to over there. You just flew straight past the food and everything. There we go. So we're going to send Diesel over to Charlie, and then just like we did with Chuck, we're going to give him a nice big piece of food. That's his reward. Give him a little clap then, guys. Again, he did very, very well. And then as we're popping Diesel away, I'm going to go and retrieve our final bird. Now, the final bird that's going to be joining us today, her name is Rhea, and Rhea is a species of falcon known as a Lanner falcon. Now, these birds are native to Africa, and you do get them a bit in the Mediterranean as well. They are slightly smaller in terms of stockiness than a peregrine, and they are similar though in other respects. All falcons kind of have that universal appearance to them. Now, a lot of you are probably going to wonder why Rhea is wearing this fancy hat. And before anybody asks, no, it's not her crash helmet. The reason she is wearing this hood is to keep her nice and calm. And that is because when you have a bird of prey that can sometimes be a little bit nervy here and there, when you hood them, it just takes everything scary out of the equation. So it's a really useful tool for falconers to keep their bird nice and relaxed until we feel we're ready to take the hood off and then let her fly. Now, Rhea is a very young falcon. In fact, she's only just over a year old at the moment. She's in her juvenile plumage, and we are hoping that very, very soon she is going to molt, which means that she's going to drop out all of her feathers currently, and she's going to grow through a brand new set. Now, Rhea does actually live next to another Lanner falcon in the centre named Bandit, and if any of you guys walked past him today, you probably would have seen him. He's a very different colour. He's far more of a bluey coloration, and that's what she's going to turn into once she's finished her molt. Now, because she is also very young, Rhea has a tendency to be a little bit scruffy, so please do beg her pardon. Her feathers are not in the best of conditions at the moment, but again, it is really just because she is quite a young falcon, and after she's molted this year, she's definitely going to go into a much better situation visually. Now, with Rhea, the idea then is we're just trying to get her as fit as possible before we actually then put her into molt, which means we'll be fattening her up, we'll be putting her in that aviary and basically giving her a bit of a holiday. She'll have some time off, she can sit in there, be pretty lazy, and she can just basically do whatever she wants. And that will give her time to drop out her old feathers and grow through a new set. But before we do that, we want to make sure that this bird has had as much opportunity as possible to stretch her wings, build her muscle, and just get nice and fit and healthy. So we get her out every single day for a bit of flying like this and just let her stretch her wings. Come on then. Now, like I said, she's very, very young, so she isn't the fittest of birds at the moment. That being said, she's doing really well today. She's a really floaty bird. She's got a massive wingspan in proportion to her body, which means that even on a day like today where there's really not much wind, Rhea can still find a little bit of updraft or a little bit of thermal, and that's all she needs to carry her up into the sky. Now, falcons then, they are absolutely built for speed and efficiency. She's got these narrow wings which help her cut through the air, but I think what we're going to do is not push her too much more. So once she's in a nice high position, so I reinforce her correctly, hop, we're going to call her in, and then give her a little clap then, guys. There she goes. So a lovely little flight from Rhea. She's stretched her wings, she's done what we wanted to, we've reinforced her for being up nice and high, making sure then she understands that's what we want her to do, because I gave her her reward while she was at that point. From here on out then, she gets to sit there and tuck into her nice big bit of chicken on the law pad at her own leisure, which probably will take her a few minutes. And then once she's done that, I'm going to perform what's called the trade-off. So I'm actually going to trade the law pad in exchange for another piece of food. And this is a practice that we would use if we were hunting with Rhea, because she is actually strong enough to go after something up to the size of a duck. And if I had been out with her and she had now hunted a duck, I would actually want that for my dinner. But of course, she wouldn't just give it to me for free, so much like I'm going to do with her law pad, I'd trade. I'd give her another piece of food in exchange for whatever she has caught. Now guys, we are going to call this the end of the display, because like I said, Rhea's probably going to sit there for a little while and eat at a glacial pace by the looks of it. If you want to sit and watch her and watch me do the trade-off, you're more than welcome to. Other than that, the Bird of Prey Centre is open. It just goes down the hill and curves back up to the right. Unfortunately, dogs are not permitted to come in because they will upset the birds. We do have another display at 2:45, which will be a different set of birds of prey back here again. And if you do want to ask any questions, then once I've sorted Rhea out, I'll be available. But Charlie's on hand as well to answer any questions you might have. Other than that though, guys, thanks very much for your attention and enjoy the rest of your day at Robin Hill.